The next cartoon that I'm going to be reviewing for this month involving Cartoon Crisis is My Gym Partner's a Monkey. And if you watch the Mr. Mieto's video on the A-Word episode, you can really tell that this episode really didn't age well whatsoever. I mean, the premise is really good when it comes to a human hanging out with animal characters in a school environment, but at the same time, this show is really mean-spirited towards the main character of the show. I did watch this show before when I was young, and I barely remember a single bit of it. Not because of how they made the idea poorly executed, but the fact that the characters were mean-spirited to the point that people just don't understand that Jake is just basically blue except an animal. So anyway, the episode I'm going to be reviewing from this show is Docu-Trauma, if I spell that correctly. In one of the episodes where you completely see that the characters are just being mean and just not giving any lessons towards the audience in the show, this episode completely insulted the intelligence of not only the audience but for people who completely do documentaries. I know I never say those types of sentences before, but that's what I actually think about this episode. This episode starts with Adam Lyon, who is his name, by the way, just got a Z after he woke up. And then he tries to remove it, but no matter what he does, it just keeps getting worse. He just keeps getting a bad day on having the car spray mud all over his body, and the fact that he has to tie his shoe every single time. Not to mention that his pants was whipped. Yeah. As you can really tell, despite the fact that we didn't meet his gym partner yet, he's really one of the most miserable characters in any other cartoon, and probably the only likable characters in this. And the fact that this episode starts off with him just getting completely dollied is honestly making this episode try way too hard to make this episode work out for its plot. Not only that, he also wants to impress Kelly, who is his love interest of this show. And as far as I'm concerned, considering what he's going to go through in this episode, it really makes everything that he went through is honestly undeserved. And believe me, we are only just getting started with this episode. So anyway, when Adam heads to his school, which is Charlie's Darwin Middle School, he meets his friend Jake, and as much as Jake is honestly one of the most horrendous characters in this, you will probably be surprised of how hateable he is in this episode for what he's going to be doing at the end of the episode. After getting an announcement that Zero Cornelius, who is the feature documentary of animals in this show, is going to be coming over, all the other animals try to look good in order to be part of the feature film that Ziwi is trying to make. So, as far as I'm concerned, this is pretty much a good setup on having a documentary person completely making a feature film involving the animals that Adam is by. However, what makes this episode really hard what makes this episode terrible is what we're going to see later on. Believe me, the stupidity in this show is just hard to take it seriously, and it just ruins any credibility of having the animals be mostly like every other human by going to a school and completely do homework and stuff like that. I know I keep warring these out, but that's just basically what this show is. They really made most of the characters not as intelligent and really hard to actually take any of the situations that Adam is going through. Believe me, Adam is completely a mess in this, and we all know that he isn't an entire animal like the other animals in this. So when Jake completely drew an eye on his pimple, which is actually kind of stupid to actually be fooled at, we actually get to see the filmmaker called Zero Cornelius, if I did spell her name right. Do you want to know my biggest issue with this character? Like I mentioned, she's really blind and really stupid. She doesn't even understand that while doing reviews of the other animals and the experiences that she went through on doing her documentary, she completely sees all the other animals be like animals, but then for some reason, she actually see that Adam is a different animal, all because of the eye, the drawn eye on his pimple, and she calls it the three-eyed creature, or pants for short. Yeah, this is the biggest issue with this episode, is that Ziruk doesn't even mistake Adam as a human whatsoever. She actually sees him as an actual animal, all because of him being a mess and completely having that eye drawn on his pimple, and the fact that even though that Adam tries his best to actually say that he isn't an animal and just a boy, Ziruk Cornelius doesn't even care whatsoever. So she just keeps documenting him, despite the fact that Adam wants no part of it. Look, this show had a good premise, but the issue is that the execution of the episodes makes it really hard to actually see any credibility from this. Believe me when I say this, is that this is honestly, no one will probably do this type of stuff. And I highly doubt that anyone will probably approve of what Ziwi is doing in this episode. It's honestly really stupid. I mean, if you're in this situation of being Adam in his shoes, and the fact that you're a human and being around with other animals, you know, they should know full well that Adam is not an animal, despite the fact that in some episodes, they really don't care whatsoever. I get it's the gimmick where animals do not know what humans are, which is the vice versa of humans not understanding what animals do as a living, but at the same time, it's honestly stupid to actually see this type of stuff while Adam is just treating miserably while trying to actually address to Ziwi that he isn't an animal. But Ziwi Cornelius just doesn't care whatsoever. It's honestly way more stupider, and honestly makes this episode really stupid to watch. Getting to Jake in this episode, other than what we're going to witness at the end of the episode of an action that he caused by embarrassing Adam, he brushes his teeth so that he can get some kind of attention because his teeth is completely dirty. And even without toothpaste, his entire teeth is extremely clean. So clean that that it can completely glow anywhere that he goes. I honestly think that his bit of having his entire teeth extremely clean is just basically something that is only for importance at the end of this episode. Because as far as I'm concerned, Jake has really done so much terrible things in this show towards his best friend Adam, if you could call it best friend. And other than Blue, who was an imaginary friend, I honestly think that Jake, despite being a monkey, should actually be more mature and actually see what Adam is feeling in this situation. I mean, sure, he tried to help him by but just trying to fit in on drawing that eye on his pimple, and I will admit it's honestly not one of the worst things that he did, but at the same time, it really doesn't help anything. But what makes him really hateable is what we see towards the end of this episode. When Adam heads to the boys' locker room to prevent getting any kind of attention from Ziwi Cornelius, Jake completely decides to go into the boys' locker room by having him doing the filming for Ziwi, since that his teeth can still glow in the dark. And this leads to Jake completely recording Adam while he was taking a shower. Yeah. So much of a best friend that you are, Jake. As far as I'm concerned, I honestly won't be surprised that the A episode, which premiered before this episode, honestly isn't the final episode, because as far as I'm concerned, I completely agree with the mysterious mentor on him saying that that is actually the final episode. Not only that, after Adam is completely filmed naked, somehow it gave the approval to so many people all over the world, despite the fact that he's no longer the three-eyed creature or pants for short, since that he doesn't have that pimple and isn't completely dirty. And not only that, he's completely naked in front of so many people all over the world. Well, okay, though he still has that pimple, but still. And not only that, the ending of this episode just sees most of his friends see him completely naked, and this leads to Adam just completely running away until he just runs into Zero Cornelius filming another feature film. Do you want to see why this show is poorly executed and also terribly executed? It's because of stuff like this. And the ending just involves Adam just being miserable with no turning back. I know that this whole feature documentary came out of nowhere, but at the same time, you can really tell that Adam wants no part of this whatsoever. And the fact that he had a miserable day at school on completely dirty with his clothes being mud-stained, you can really felt sympathy for him. As far as I'm concerned, his goal, for the very least of his abilities, is just trying to impress his crush. As far as I'm concerned, that's pretty much the only good things involving this show, is that his crush isn't really hateable whatsoever, and she acts like every other human in this show, at least. And if Adam gets embarrassed in front of her with a pimple or any of that kind of stuff, she won't be able to talk to him. At the same time, he just wants to get some kind of approval from her, but that's not saying much. As far as I'm concerned, I honestly think that this episode was just made just to make Adam completely miserable. I don't care if this episode is called Docu-Trauma. This episode is about a boy being transferred to Charles Darwin Middle School, and if you're going to have this plot of having him appealing with other animals, at least make it a lot more entertaining and have the characters at least likable. Now, don't get me wrong, there might be some characters that be considered likable in this, mainly Adam's friends in this, but at the same time, it just isn't enough for this whatsoever. As far as I'm concerned, the only thing I can actually say good about this is that, for the very least, the animation is good for what it is. For me personally, I just do not like flash animation and CGI animation for the most part, and I honestly think that the detail that they did in this is probably really good, even if this is one of the worst shows from Cartoon Network. But other than that, this show was just really miserable. Zooey is completely oblivious of the fact that he's talking to a human, and the fact that she's also a human, and the fact that Adam is truly miserable. Not to mention what Jake did by exposing him in front of the entire world on worldwide television. I really do not have anything to discuss about this, other than the fact that it's just a train wreck no matter what episode you watch. I don't know if there are some minor gems in this show, but if there were, then I honestly think that all the attention was on those, while the rest of the episodes like this just didn't get any attention whatsoever. As far as I'm concerned, this is pretty much the only time you're ever going to see me review an episode from this show, because I don't think that there are any other episodes from this show that can easily impress me after completely watching other cartoons than this. I mean, it's not worse than Out Jimmy's Head, but at the same time, it's honestly up there. Some people may have debates on this, whether this show is good or bad, but if you do have debates on if this show is good, then go comment down below on what episodes are considered good from this show, and maybe explain them in detail or minor detail if you have to. But for me, this episode is honestly the worst from this show for how miserable Adam is and how the characters are portrayed in this episode. I give this episode a 3 out of 10.